Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Right on Time Automating Military Logistics Competition launch webinar. Thank you very much for joining us this morning to learn more about the competition from my DASA colleagues and DSTL colleagues as well. My name is Alice Lowton. I'm the DASA Delivery Manager for this competition, and I'm just going to run you through some housekeeping points first and the agenda, and then we shall launch into the main event. So DASA have muted all lines, so please keep them on mute so that we can remove any background noise. We will be using audio only today, so please turn off any cameras. To optimize the WebEx view, we have set everything up so you'll see the main slides in the center of the screen and the presenter tiles at the top of the screen. We will be recording this presentation, but the recording will only display the presentation and have no audio over the top. And have audio over the top, sorry. No names will be recorded and the tiles will not be displayed across the top of the screen. We'll be having a question and answer session at the end of the presentation where we will be using Slido as the method for which you can pose your questions to the DSTL and DASA panel. Please do not use the chat function in WebEx. You can access Slido via www.sli.do with the entry code #DASA. DASA. This is an open format, so other attendees will be able to see these questions and upvote the most popular ones. Any questions we do not get round to answering during the Q&A today, we will make a note of, and these will be uploaded to the gov.uk website in the same location as the competition document, and we'll list all of the questions posed and the answers given. If you do experience any technical issues at all this morning, please use the chat function direct to the DASA host and we will assist you. So the agenda, I will shortly hand over to DASA Innovation Partner, Mike Madden, who will give an overview of DASA. We will then have a technical overview of the competition and its context presented by the DSTL Research Project team. I will then outline some key information you should know when applying for the competition, including deadlines. And lastly, we'll finish with a Q&A session. After the Q&A session, there will be another presentation on how to submit a proposal for those of you who are new to the DASA process or would like a refresher, so please feel free to stay on the line for that. I will now hand over to our innovation partner, Mike Madden, to give an overview of DASA.
Good morning, everyone. My name's Mike Madden, and I'm the DASA Innovation Partner for the Southwest of England. The title Innovation Partner, I suppose, encompasses the idea that I'm basically a consultant for DASA and work in the regions. And I'm one of a number of innovation partners spread across the nation, and more on that in a moment. The Defence and Security Accelerator is here to find and fund exploitable innovation to support defence and security, and we try and do so quickly and effectively. And we're also here to support national prosperity. The organisation DASA, which we'd like to introduce you to now as part of this competition, is probably some 70 strong now and is made up of a number of divisions. I work in a division which is the Innovator and Supplier Outreach team. And I'm one of 12 colleagues spread across the nation, as I just mentioned. We also have an operations team which runs our competitions, and in fact the operations team is running this event today. We also have a communications and engagement team which works, as you might expect, on publicising the good work of DASA and in fact supporting events like this. And finally, we have another team which works very much on the customer facing side. And they are our connections with the customers across defence and security, seeking to understand what the customer needs are and also to bring them along if the customers want us to run a competition on their behalf. I'd just like to go through briefly how we achieve this. So first of all, the Defence and Security Accelerator sits at the middle of an innovation ecosystem across defence and security, and you can see across the top here our customers, if you like. So it's the Ministry of Defence plus all of its agencies such as the frontline commands and units and so on, but it includes people like DSTL and Defence Equipment Support, Defence Digital and so on. We also work with security departments across government, which is a much more complex space, if you like. But if you think Home Office, counterterrorism, policing, security, borders, cyber, you probably won't be too far wide of the mark. Now, those customers bring us their problems and hopefully their cash so that we can run competitions on their behalf. And we then go out to communities like yourselves, as we are in fact doing today. So that includes small to medium enterprises, all the way down to micros, sometimes pre-revenue. We work with academia, and we work with our strategic suppliers in order to find the innovations that we need to solve the problems of our customers at the top there. So we sit at the heart of this, but I would point out at this stage that we're not the only ones in this ecosystem. We have a particular role, and I'll talk a bit more about that in a moment, but there are other agencies that work with, for instance, the frontline commands that have their own little innovation cells and procure innovation in their own way. Now, you've got involved clearly in this competition. There's a number of ways to get involved. One is through a medium of a theme competition, which is what you're on now. But we also have an offering known as the open call. And I'll talk a bit more about both of these in a moment. But one thing I would like to publicise now is that we also do other events, and I've just listed one of them there, such as the market exploration, which doesn't normally attract a project or a fund, but is a great way of defence understanding what the innovation landscape looks like. And often a market exploration will precede one of our themed competitions. So it's worth keeping an eye open for those. And I would suggest that if you haven't done so already, set up an alert to our gov.uk website so that you're alerted promptly when we do launch a competition and you're not relying entirely on LinkedIn or Twitter feeds. Now, we do have a couple of options about, why should you work with DASA? We do have some unique appeal, I think, in the innovation landscape. We provide 100% funding based on a contract, which in turn is based on your proposal. Our IP terms are pretty benevolent. This is all listed on our gov.uk website. We don't require you to provide equity or match funding, and the intellectual property that we fund stays with you. One important thing, though, if we move down the list there, you'll see that if you are successful in getting project funding with us, there are some other attractive attributes to what we offer, and that's in particular access to technical advice and technical support throughout your project when you'll be partnered with someone probably from DSTL, access to end users throughout your projects and the ability sometimes to demonstrate to those end users what you have achieved. We have a fairly rapid contracting system, and I think our record sits at something like 48 hours to going on contract with someone that we had contracted before. And we also have an access to mentoring and finance service, which is, if you like, a business support team, which helps smaller enterprises in particular to if you like, build their business savvy and capability. So we appreciate that some of our smaller innovators come to us with a lot of technical know-how, but perhaps not the business support or acumen they need. And we provide that support for our funded projects. What sort of thing do we fund? Well, it's important to note here that we fund innovation. So we normally look for things that are in the developmental or trial phases and not yet on the market. Now, I've put there unless specified. That's important. DASA is not a procurement arm. We don't acquire equipment. However, we get closer to that depending on the competition. So what I would say is that although that's our standard offering, sometimes a competition document will specify some nuances on that theme. So please do take a look at the competition document and read it in detail, and also look at the details on our website when you're formulating your ideas. We normally like our innovations to be aligned to a defence or security challenge or need. The great thing about a theme competition is that we've defined that for you in the competition document, and I would urge you to look at that in some detail. And we also do work alongside other defence and security innovation fundings and initiatives. As I mentioned earlier on, the frontline commands have their own hubs as well, and we do work closely with those and indeed with the frontline commands as a whole. Now, I mentioned earlier on, we run a couple of competitions. So you're here because you are interested in one of our theme competitions. The interesting thing about theme competitions is very much a customer pull activity, if you like. The customers define a challenge, they provide the funding, and they are going out to a community of people like yourselves to seek solutions to their problems. We do run a number of theme competitions, and I would commend these to you. Again, set up an alert on our website. Now, these theme competitions are often multi-phase. They are linked with launch events like the one you're at now. And there are competition-specific one-to-one opportunities, which I would strongly recommend you join if you haven't done so already. And of course, there will be demonstration marketplace events at the end where you get an opportunity to show your outputs and outcomes to the customer community and indeed to each other. One thing we do like to see in a lot of these competitions is collaboration. That can often be a really good hallmark and condition for success. But it's not the only competition we run. We also run what we call the open call for innovation. So whereas the theme competition is, if you like, customer pull, this is very much innovator push. And this is one of our flagship offerings. We run 6 cycles a year. You can submit at any time, but there's probably not much point submitting too early in a cycle. And again, we do welcome any idea through here. So whereas a themed competition has a defined challenge, and therefore we are expecting solutions within those bounds, with the open call, anything goes. We do have different channels you can apply to depending on the technical maturity of your proposal. But the one thing I would say on this on the open call is we do have an opportunity for you to submit an outline, which we call an innovation outline proposal or a prospect. Before bidding to the open call, I would strongly recommend you submit one of those in order to trigger a bit of an initial dialogue with our outreach team, of which I'm a part, to give you a bit of a course check on whether your idea is in fact warranted, welcome, and is worth your while investing in. So please do get in touch if you are interested in the open call. And so finally, to my final slide, I did mention that I'm one of a number of innovation partners across the team. You can see on the right there the map of our regional spread, and there's one additional who works internationally. I would just say that this regional spread is due to change because we're about to realign our team to the UK economic regions, which are used by the Office of National Statistics and so on. So we will realign the boundaries slightly. That map will change the next time you see this presentation. But I put on there for 2 reasons. One is on our landing page on gov.uk, you do have the opportunity to get in touch. So either generically to DASA, if you have any questions, please do get in touch. Or if you have an outline and you want to talk to the outreach team, this is the good place to get at that facility. And with that, that concludes my part of first part of the presentation. I will be talking to you again later, those of you who want to stay on, where I'll talk a bit more about what good looks like in terms of submitting a proposal. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. We will now have a presentation to dive into the details of the Right on Time Automating Military Logistics competition given by the DSTL Research Programme team, consisting of Thomas Brogan, Rebecca Mangum, and Major Andy Hopkinson. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alice. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining today. My name's Tom Brogan from DSTL, and along with my colleagues Rebecca and Andy, I'll be giving you an overview of our organisation and what we're seeking through this competition. DSTL is the Science Inside UK Defence and Security. We have over 4,000 staff across 6 sites, spending over £300 million a year with industry from our £700 million of turnover to deliver high-impact science and technology for the UK's defence, security and prosperity. We work with a range of customers. The biggest spend comes from MOD Chief Scientific Advisors S&T portfolio, who are funding this competition. Chief Scientific Advisors' approach to science, technology, innovation covers a range of activities, from accelerating adoption of existing technologies at scale through to finding, nurturing and funding generation after the next capabilities in order to deliver a highly technological and innovative future for UK defence and security. This competition will be aiming to be ambitious and to invest in new risky activities and generation after next capabilities. If you'd like to read more about the CSA's policy in this area, the MOD Science and Technology Strategy is available on the gov.uk website. This competition is right on time, automating military logistics. Opportunities and threats to UK security and prosperity are tied to advances in new innovative technologies and defence's ability to exploit these. The DSTL Logistics Technology Investigations Project, or LTI for short, has been commissioned to identify and mature emerging technologies that can deliver a step change in defence support capability in order to inform future military user requirements pan-domain, so maritime, land and air. This is open to any innovative autonomy and automation technologies that offer a step change in efficiency, effectiveness or sustainability of defence support, and we're focusing on the concept of a future deployed military logistics hub. And this is towards one or more of these targets: improving delivery of a defence support capability. So this could be, for example, significantly increasing the amount of material that can be transported through the defence support network in support of a deployed operation, achieving or supporting a strategic defence objective, such as the goals laid out in the defence support strategy, or delivering a cost saving to defence that is more than the implementation cost and would deliver a significant saving for the defence support budgeting. As I said, this can address any challenge facing the defence support community, and we will be giving some examples to inspire you in the following slides. At this time, procurement of successful solutions or further development funding after this competition cannot be guaranteed. At this point, I will hand over to Major Andrew Hopkinson of the Royal Logistics Corps.
Good morning. As Tom said, my name is Major Andy Hopkinson. I'm one of the military advisors working in DSTL, and I'm a Royal Logistics Corps officer with operational experience of leading deployed logistics node teams, both in sea, air and rail, in support of operations and exercises in the Balkans, the Gulf and North America. I've been asked to add some richness to the context of the defence user need part of this launch, and I'm drawing briefly on my experience to do this. And also to answer the question, why have we selected this part of the defence support network to try and introduce autonomy and automation? So firstly, I would emphasise that the point that vehicles, manpower and materiel leave the coupling bridge, whether that be from air, sea or rail, is central to the effective and efficient operation of the network for both the project and sustain aspects of any deployment. How these are established and run are critical to rapidly deploying a force when time is critical, or to sustaining it with agility and cost effectiveness once deployed. During a deployment, this is where soldiers are married up with their vehicles and provided an initial stock of ammunition, other combat supplies and stores before being launched forward into potential conflict. Being able to do this and maintain the flow of force elements into theatre smoothly is crucial to achieving rapid effect. For example, you don't want a battle group of infantry sitting at the airfield or port waiting for their vehicles for 24 hours because it is taking your port operators longer than planned to offload them from the Ro-Ro that has just arrived. Nor do you want to have a battle group's worth of armoured vehicles sitting on the quayside or clogging up the port clearance area because the soldiers to drive them have been held up at the A-pod waiting for their baggage and freight to be offloaded. Both of these things happened to me as a port task group commander in Thessaloniki during an Op Agricola Romont. Moving on to once the force is deployed, the efficient and accurate flow of stores through these nodes is also essential. I don't need to remind you of lives lost because of priority shipments of body armour not being effectively tracked through the A-pod and expedited to the troops that needed it, or mission critical vehicles being confined to base because no one could identify which ISO container the electronic countermeasures they needed had been put in at the theatre log RV. Again, these are both real examples, this time from Iraq. I'd also point out this work is dangerous in both its inherent risk from handling ammunition, heavy vehicles and freight to the operating conditions. For example, spending hours unchaining vehicles in the lower decks of a Ro-Ro in the middle of a southern Greek or Middle Eastern summer. But also as adversaries look to disrupt our rear areas and support network, possibly by destroying transport stores, personnel in concentrations, or preventing the build-up and deployment of forces. In most of the later optelics in Iraq, the A-pod at the contingency operating base at Basra Airport was operated under and disrupted by almost constant IDF threat, with rockets routinely landing on the airstrip and by the terminal building. The fact that the airport control tower made a nice tall aiming point might have had something to do with this. So in simple terms, it makes sense to reduce the workforce involved in these activities through autonomy and automation. If we can reliably and robustly, remembering that the threat is evolving to target information and communications, it is worth pointing out that this is the first point back from the deployed force elements that the workforce is solely devoted to their role in the support network and therefore more likely to generate numbers that can be utilized elsewhere. The final area I would draw your attention to is the strategic imperative to driving autonomy and automation into the support network. A raft of policy and strategy has recently been released, setting the vision for how defence will operate to maintain its advantage in the future. These include the integrated operating capability and the defence support strategy. These have generated their own service visions and significant innovation initiatives across all frontline commands. And what I point out is common to all these approaches, and buried in all of these is the necessity for introducing increasing autonomy and automation into the supply chain, and hence this launch today. Thank you. That's my bit over.
Thank you very much, Andy. The scope of this competition focuses on innovative autonomy and automation, including automation for additive manufacturing for deployed military logistics hubs, as Andy has just drawn our attention to. Deployed military logistics hub is a centre or specific area designated to deal with activities related to transportation, organisation, separation, or distribution of personnel, equipment and material, such as an airport of disembarkation, seaport of disembarkation, or rail port of disembarkation, A-pod, S-pod or R-pod for short. Deployed military logistics hub can be deployed in challenging environments with limited facilities, infrastructure and services, and within the definition of this competition could include logistics hubs at sea, such as aboard a Royal Fleet Auxiliary vessel or one of the Queen Elizabeth class carriers, as well as on land. To give you a brief illustration of what this might look like in a hypothesized scenario, you'd have your airport of embarkation and seaport of embarkation at a distance from the deployed environment, such as in the UK, which would then be linked by lines of communication to the corresponding airport or seaport of disembarkation, and similarly for a rail port or road reception area, depending on the scenario. And there would then be a series of marshalling areas, staging areas, and assembly areas, which would transport the personnel, equipment, and material forward to the deployed forces which need to make use of it. If you'd like to read more on this subject, the Joint Doctrine Note 117 Joint Theatre Entry is available on the gov.uk website. This is the technology concept. Developments in autonomy and automation have led to an increased ability for these systems to operate in a range of challenging environments, and DSTL is seeking to understand how developments and innovation in industry and academia could be exploited by defence support. Within this, Defence has increased its understanding of where, how, and when to make best use of additive manufacturing capabilities, which has highlighted key challenges DSTL is seeking to understand, such as generating technical specifications for legacy spares or acceptance testing parts at deployed locations. The requirement for these capabilities at deployed locations with constrained availability of space and skilled and qualified people makes compact and highly automated facilities highly desirable. Deployed additive manufacturing has potential to be utilised across the maritime, land and air domains. And in terms of the potential defence and security benefit and exploitation, Defence Support intends to exploit innovative technologies and approaches more often in the delivery of support. There are many aspects of deployed military logistics hubs that could be improved through autonomy and automation, such as demand planning and data collection, storage and warehousing, material handling and disposals. This competition is, however, not seeking proposals that are already being developed elsewhere within UK defence, such as self-driving vehicles for use off-base, new food and water sources, or provision of medical care. Briefly, each of those areas, there's a need to consider within demand planning and data collection, predicting demand, providing a real-time view of stocks, reducing stockpiles and reducing redundant moves in order to deliver the right item at the right place for the right time to enable the end users to complete their mission. Storage and warehousing. Need to reduce equipment and personnel required whilst increasing simplicity, speed and flexibility. Within material handling, which includes picking and packing, loading and unloading and cross-docking, there's a desire to reduce demand on service personnel, reduce material handling costs, increase reliability and speed, reduce cross-docking and enable dispersed resupply locations, similarly to ensure material and stock is available at the point of need. In terms of disposals, there's desire to improve decision making, sort and separate waste and recycled materials, and enable consumption and waste monitoring, an aspiration to turn waste into raw material that could be used for additive manufacturing, feeding power and heat generation, or being turned into construction, aggregate, amongst other potential uses that you may be able to propose to us. Based on this and our research to date, we've generated some ideas for potential examples of how autonomy and automation could be used to enhance defence support to inspire your thinking in this area. This is not a restrictive list, and we equally welcome proposals addressing other aspects of deployed logistics hubs where you can propose concepts that will deliver a step change in capability with future development. Firstly, autonomous airfield ground equipment. This could cover a range of activities within an airbase, including but not limited to runway inspection and clearance, loading and unloading of items between assets, splitting out consignments, packing and configuring loads, fueling, cleaning and de-icing platforms, aircraft towing, and passenger and hub personnel assistance and management. And it is the aspiration that as the level of automation and digitization is increased in these activities, that there will be greater availability of data that would also enable increased automation in the planning and organization of these activities. An autonomous base distribution, allowing the secure transport of a variety of items from point to point around bases in a way that is autonomously planned and implemented and routed through the environment, responding appropriately to environmental changes and obstacles. And this could be further extended using intelligent algorithms to optimize the allocation and distribution of assets to tasks based on priority and efficiency. I think the images on this slide quite nicely cover the range of the potential infrastructure at deployed logistics hubs to give you an idea of the range of locations in which the military deploy and operate. Deployed automated stores providing secure physical protection to their contents during transportation and operation, potentially being able to automatically issue items based on demand and logging items dispensed, providing a means to monitor consumption. And this has particular potential in combination with automated material handling interfaces for autonomous platforms, able to automatically interface with autonomous vehicles. It could be air or ground, or ultimately with further development, maritime unmanned vehicles, automatically interface with automated stores, such as the example above, or even being integrated into those automated stores, automatically handling standard item packaging and logging the items being passed through the interface to improve asset tracking. Smart modular storage and transportation containers, nesting storage containers inside larger containers in a predefined manner, able to be handled by automated systems, such as using predefined manual handling interfaces, uniquely digitally identified to enable tracking, providing physical and security protection to their contents, and monitoring relevant environmental parameters such as vibration, shock, or temperature when appropriate to their use. And the example on the right here would be the current situation where mounted on the pallet, they're non-standard items and therefore not able to completely make use of the volume that could be stacked on that pallet. Similarly, long-range environmental and consumption monitoring, we think, could include monitoring of the environment and consumption of items being tracked across the base and operating with minimal power consumption. The concept above would not necessarily require specific standardized boxes or containers for that tracking. And automated waste processing. So at the moment, a lot of the waste generated on deployment is general waste, and if possible, to sort that waste to an appropriate level of purity into useful categories and to gather data on the waste being produced, there's the opportunity to make better use of that. Useful categories could include separating out refurbishable or high-value recyclable items, additive manufacturing, feedstock, fuel for heat and power generation, or aggregate for infrastructure construction. And that's not necessarily an exhaustive list if you can propose other potential uses for the material. I will now hand over to my colleague Rebecca to give us a run through of the deployed additive manufacturing requirement. Rebecca.
Thank you, Tom. So as Tom discussed, Defence has spent considerable time assessing additive manufacturing technology and in particular its benefit to logistics. We've spent time and effort as well training our people how to use it. But through the work on additive manufacturing, we've identified several defence-specific blockers to the application of additive manufacturing. This is in particular a need to consider additive manufacturing as a system and move our focus from the manufacturing stage of the process and to start to look at some of the other steps outlined in this slide. And so through this competition, we're looking at how we can use automation to solve some of these blockers to AM for logistics. So this slide gives you some examples of how automation may aid different aspects of the AM system. Within the identify step, we're interested in whether we can use scanning methods and digitized engineering to automate how we develop physical specifications, but also use automated feature identification to help decide which parts we can make using additive manufacturing. Within redesign, we see automation being used for modification of part designs based on some of the limitations of additive manufacturing, but also improving access to part data where we might have limited data transfer opportunities. And then once we've made components, we're really interested in how we make sure that we certify them and make sure that they're correct each time. And so we're interested in how we might test components and particularly compact, deployable and highly automated testing equipment for certification, but also component test methods, including post-manufacture and in-situ techniques. And to go with both of these, some of the statistical tools that might enable us to use simple tests to certify slightly more critical components. So I just want to note as well that we're through this project, we're not seeking simply to purchase additive manufacturing equipment. Instead, we're looking for proposals that are going to undertake small-scale specific interventions to meet one or more of these example challenges.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Rebecca. So, what we want for this competition, firstly, developments and demonstrations. We're interested in technologies that can be developed towards TRL6 with a clear costed outline plan to produce a demonstratable solution and solutions demonstrated at an MOD hosted event. The demonstration event is planned to be held in the UK, September of 2021. And as you'll see from the right-hand side of this slide, TRL6 means technology models or prototype demonstrations in a relevant environment. And for a deployed military logistics hub, we're interpreting a relevant environment to mean an area of hard standing, such as concrete or tarmac, and some basic shelter where that is required, either within a fixed building or under canvas as is appropriate. What we want in terms of the user need, we're interested in how the solution will be employed by end users in a future deployed military logistics hub, and I hope that Andy's introduction will have given you some good inspiration in that area. And we're interested in how the solution's anticipated benefits, for example, in effectiveness, efficiency, and sustainability, will deliver a step change in capability for the defence support community towards improving delivery of a defence support capability, achieving or supporting a strategic defence objective, or delivering a cost saving to defence that is more than the implementation cost. Re-emphasising this at the end as well as the beginning of the presentation, because this really will be critical to our decision-making process on which proposals to fund. Some potential enhancements that you may wish to consider addressing in your proposals, though they're not mandatory, will be the potential for integration between and across technology concepts in multiple proposals, through life user and workforce implications, including cultural and behavioural impacts. So thinking about how it would affect the roles of personnel if there is an increasing level of automation in activities that have traditionally been by the personnel themselves. The data and information systems implications, so what sorts of information would be required in order to develop and implement one of these solutions, and also what sorts of data these solutions would be likely to generate and what further value might be derived from that. We're not expecting interface control documents at this stage, simply a high-level understanding of the types of information. Potential for exploitation more broadly in the maritime, land and air domains. So we recognise that at this stage the proposals are likely to be for prototypes and that they are likely to be introduced to address quite focused user needs within a single domain. That's entirely acceptable within this competition, but we'd like to hear from you what your thoughts are in terms of how your solutions might be extended and expanded for potential pan-domain implementation with further future investment and development. And we would be interested in how solutions can be environmentally responsible in alignment with the UK government's net zero 50 target for reduction of emissions and the MOD's sustainability strategy. What we do not want, a complete list of the exclusions is available in the competition document. I've drawn out the ones that I think are most relevant for this webinar. So for this competition, we're not interested in proposals and systems that cannot articulate a step change in support capability, as has been outlined, cannot demonstrate feasibility in the timescales of this competition, identically resubmit a previous bid to DASA or MOD, are fully manually or remotely controlled, are existing commercial off-the-shelf or military off-the-shelf products though we would be interested in those products where they are being applied to this challenge in a novel way, and further development is required to make use of them in this military context. The use of unmanned aircraft not complying with civil aviation or military aviation authority requirements. Any proposals that are likely to come with a significant maintenance burden, or which offer no viable long-term prospect of integration into defence and security capabilities, or of outcompeting existing technological solutions. Finally, again, we're not interested in any proposals that are already being developed elsewhere within UK defence. For example, off-base self-driving vehicles, new food and water sources, or provision of medical care. Those three are the areas that we thought were most likely to come up within this competition. It's, however, not an exhaustive list. You'll appreciate that we can't list every single development within UK defence and support in order to list every single exclusion here. In terms of supply collaboration and multiple submissions, we encourage collaboration between organisations for this competition. To support this, we provided a short survey to collect details of those who wish to explore collaboration possibilities. DASA have informed me that we've already had some people sign up, and that's fantastic. If you're interested in collaboration, please complete the survey and your details will be circulated among the other potential suppliers who have completed the survey and are interested in collaborating. It does mean that if you don't complete the survey, you'll not get the information from other suppliers who are interested in collaborating. So I'd certainly encourage you to look into that if it's something that would be of interest. Suppliers may submit multiple separate proposals for different solutions, for example, addressing different examples as outlined above, or different concepts that are being proposed, but must make it clear where there are interdependencies across solutions and what the financial and capability benefits would be for funding multiple interdependent proposals. Finally, DSTL will be assisted throughout this competition by Atkins, a member of the SNC Lavalin Group. Atkins will support DSTL as technical subject matter experts and by gathering and analysing findings from the demonstration events. Atkins will not be assessing proposals for funding. That will be a purely MOD decision. Thank you very much for listening. I hope that this will have inspired you to put in some innovative and creative proposals. As we've said, these examples are there to give you a jump start in your thinking. They are not exclusive or exhaustive, so we very much welcome innovative ideas that we haven't thought of yet. With that, I will hand back to Alice.
Thank you, Tom. Lots of information there. I will now run through some important information about this competition. So the closing date for this competition is midday on Thursday, the 25th of March. This is a firm cut-off time, so please do allow some time before the deadline for any technical issues that may arise or any delays with loading web pages or saving, etc. Please note that when submitting a proposal, a supplier assurance questionnaire also needs to be completed in response to the cyber risk assessment for this competition. This must also be completed by the 25th of March, as you'll be prompted to enter a reference number on the proposal form. You can find the details for this, including the link of where to complete it, in the competition document under section 5.6, things you should know about DASA contracts. As Tom mentioned, while the competition is open, we will be running a collaboration survey, and we do encourage collaboration between suppliers to bring different ideas and technologies together. If you're interested in potential collaboration with another organisation, please do complete the survey using the link contained in the competition document or news story. Details captured will be circulated to all survey respondents every Friday until Friday the 5th of March, just before the closing date. If your proposal is successful in this competition, we will aim to get you on contract by mid-May, so please be prepared to answer any clarification questions or submit any information that commercial may require. And please keep in mind that by submitting a proposal, you are agreeing to the DASA terms and conditions, so ensure that you have read the T's and C's and have the permission to sign off to accept these if you are content with them. If you are successful at the decision conference, you'll be unable to negotiate these conditions before you're awarded a contract. So please do study them and the competition document as well.
This is Mike Madden, the DASA Innovation Partner for the Southwest of England, and I'll press on now with a presentation which will take about 20 minutes, although we are flexible, on how to submit a proposal. Now, for those of you who have worked with DASA before, you might not need to hear this, and you'd be more than welcome to dive off and get some of your life back. But equally, whether you've submitted to us before or not, I hope that you find this little presentation useful. So I'll kick straight into it then. So first of all, most of you, because you're on this call, may well have already found our DASA homepage, and I would certainly commend that to you. Like I say, whether you're proposing something for this competition or not, you may have ideas that are relevant to defence in the future. Now, one thing I would recommend when you're using the homepage, and indeed when you want to submit something via our submission service, that you should use Google Chrome. That is our preferred browser. Some of the others do cause issues, and hopefully that won't be an issue for most of you. You'll see on this image of our landing page that you can apply for funding. That's the route by which you identify which competition is underway, but also it gets you a couple of links which take you to the account within which you need to upload. Now, in order to work with us, you have to have what we call an Enterprise Collaboration Service account, ECS. That is the portal through which you submit your proposals, and it's our way of not only managing your proposal through life, it protects your intellectual property, and the people that see your proposal are only those people in government who we will then use in assessment. Now, when you click on that link, you'll be taken to an opportunity to either register if you don't already have an account, or log in if you do. If you're new to registration, you will need what we call a DUNS number, which is a unique numbering system for trading entities. The website makes it clear what's required there, so please do take a look. But if you have any questions, please do get in touch. You can see there's a contact us button there. You have our generic accelerator email, which will take you throughout to our help desk. But if you do need to talk to an innovation partner, in particular for the open call, I would suggest rather than for a theme competition, then please use that Contact Us tab on the top right. Now I'm just going to move on to this slide. So if you register on our Enterprise Collaboration System, ECS, and you log in, you'll land on our dashboard. And a dashboard does what it says on the tin. It's your landing page for your account, and it has your account details and what have you within it. Now, it's not shown here, but at the bottom of your dashboard, if you have any proposals that are in draft, or indeed any proposals that you've submitted to previous competitions, they will show up on your dashboard, and you can go back into them at any time. Now, on the left there, I've just mentioned that there are no limits, no word limits for our proposals, but I would suggest that you take care when crafting your proposal not to go too high with the word count. Each of our assessors is normally allocated about 90 minutes per proposal to do their assessment. And so it goes without saying that if you start crafting a proposal which runs to 40 pages, that you might be hitting the mark incorrectly. So that's a word to the wise right up front. And of course, before you go in and start now with submitting your proposal, you'll need to accept the terms and conditions prior to submitting. So please do take care to look on our gov.uk website at all the terms and conditions. I'll talk a little bit more about some of those in a moment. But be sure that you take note of those so that you're not pre-sifted or non-compliant when it comes to submitting your proposal. Now, once you're in the service, I just want to draw your attention to this. So you've clicked on the Start Now. You're now in the process of beginning a submission. And I'll draw your attention to on the top there, I've circled that there's a bar there, 1 to 5, which is the different stages of your proposal, your submission preparation. And the first of those stages is basically selecting which competition you want to go in. Now, I draw your attention to that bar now because you'll see it feature in the coming slides at different phases of your submission. So as you're going through the submission, you'll know exactly which stage you're at in terms of submission before you get to the final stage, which is review and submit. Now, as I say, in this point, you'll be offered the opportunity to select your service, or in other words, competition. Make sure you select the correct competition. One thing I would say is once you're past this point and you've saved and continued and you're in the drafting phase of your proposal, you can't then move that proposal to another competition. You'll need to extract that information and manually put it into a new competition entry. So just be aware of that from the start. Also, I'd like to draw your attention to at various stages in this process, you do have the opportunity to save and continue, or save and return to dashboard. And that exists pretty much throughout your submission. So you might be crafting part 1 of your submission, someone rings the bell, click save, and you don't lose your information. Or indeed, it's lunchtime, I'll save and come back later. So having gone past this point and you selected the right on time competition, you've read and accepted the terms and conditions, you move on to the next stage. So you can now see with the ribbon at the top that we're on the summary page. I just want to dwell on the summary a little bit. This is, if you like, it's the first part of the proposal. It's quite important. So first of all, there's your title. Choose your title carefully. Try and capture the imagination of the reader and the assessor as well, so that they know straight away what they're looking at. But equally, in the summary, which is a fairly limited word cap, you need to again capture the imagination of the reader so they know what they're going to read and what they're going to expect. It's also important for another reason, is because it's one of the tools that we internally to DASA use to identify appropriate assessors, those with the expertise to deal with your innovation. So please do consider this carefully. Don't just cut and paste a paragraph out of your main proposal and stick it in there and job's done. It's worth a little bit of thought. Now on this page also, you'll have the opportunity to put in the technical specialization that your proposal is appealing to. So for instance, if your proposal is centered on robotics systems or artificial intelligence, you get to choose that from a taxonomy. And once again, this is important. Choose carefully, because it's another tool that we use to go and find the appropriate assessors. Now, in the case of a theme competition, generally speaking, the assessors are a fairly known community, but this is a word to the wise really to all of you. If you submit to the open call, that is the better way to do it. But nonetheless, a bit of care is warranted here. Now you'll see that we've moved into part 3, and I just want to explain up front that part 3 is the part of the proposal where you put the bulk of your information. And we structure part 3 in 3 sections, known as desirable, feasible, and viable. And I've put this slide up here just to illustrate the point that each of those sections has a purpose. Desirable is all about the relevance and interest to a customer community. The feasible is all about your innovation, the technology, your ability to deliver the technology and the innovation, and so on. And the viable bit is all about your project plan, your deliverables and milestones, your risk assessments, your vision for exploitation beyond the project, illustrations of costs and value for money, and so on. So you can see there are 3 discrete sections there. And I point this out partly because those 3 sections are also the criteria we use for assessment. It's important to note that the assessment criteria are all on gov.uk, very clearly laid down. Some of the assessment points are clarified in the competition document, so I would urge you to read that in some detail before you submit. But essentially, I just wanted to introduce that structure for a proposal. And in the next slide, I will deal with desirable just by way of illustrating the tools you have available to you to put your proposal in. So here you can see the 3 criteria laid out, and on the right hand side you can see a little button like a drop down box, which I'll go to on the next slide. But you can see there's a section for each of desirable, feasible and viable within this main core of your proposal, if you like. This is where the bulk of your information will be. And once again, a reminder that you can save and continue at any time, and I would urge you to do so. A feature that you can see there as well, download a PDF. If you are halfway through a proposal and you're the sort of person that prefers to work offline, maybe stick it in a printout in your back pocket, and when you're out and about, and you can read it at your leisure. You can download a PDF and take a look, and it's also a way of keeping a permanent record of your proposal. You can do this at any time as well. I must admit, I prefer sometimes having a piece of paper and a red pen when I'm in the final stages of my draft. Now, I'm just going to deal with the desirable section as an illustration of the tools that you have available to you as you go through. So first of all, by clicking on that drop-down box, once you're in desirable or desirability, you will see that we do offer guidance on what we're expecting to see in that part of the proposal. So this is an abridged version of what is on our website. So between them, what you do need to do is make sure you hit on the main points that we expect to see in this section. So you can see here, if you remember that Venn diagram from an earlier slide, the strategic fit, the end user pull, and defense and security compatibility. So we're after, in this section, you illustrating why this is of interest to defense, what problem you're trying to solve, what is its relevance to defense, is there any defense interest that you're aware of in your solution. You don't, again, a top tip, you don't have to hit on every single point, so don't front load your activity in addressing every single one of these points to the nth degree. It's important you cover off the main points here. But actually don't do that at the expense of the content of the next 2 sections, the feasibility and viability. So top tip, we know there's a problem because there's a theme competition. We understand some of the challenges. You do not need to make this your main section. Sufficiency is the art of it, and judgment, bearing in mind once again that assessors only have 90 minutes. So you've got guidance here on what to include. And I've just gone down to what you would see below that guidance is your, if you like, your information entry box. Now you'll see there's a sort of box. I've put just some illustrations in there about some of the HTML and rich text formatting that you can use. Bear in mind your assessors will be assessing multiple proposals. You need to appeal to them, get their attention. So use some of those HTML tools wisely. On the top right of there, you can see a little red box around an icon. That's an image icon. So you can add inline images within your proposal. And in addition, at the bottom, you can also add images as supplementary files to your proposal. So there are 2 ways of adding imagery, one inline, one as a supplementary, if you like, an attachment at the end of your proposal. I would use these judiciously as well. A picture paints 1,000 words, and it helps the reader who may well have multiple proposals to look at. A top tip, that's well worth doing. One thing I would caution against, you can see that we will take JPEGs, PNGs and PDF file formats, but please do not use these to upload lots more text. Your text should be limited to the 3 boxes, desirable, feasible, viable, and your images that you upload should be for those things that cannot be put in the text box. So, you know, Gantt charts, tables, graphs, diagrams, and that kind of thing. Please do not use it to upload another 20-page document. That will not land well with an assessor, and they wouldn't have time to read it anyway. So the next section, you'll see now on the ribbon at the top there, we've moved across to the finance and delivery schedule. This is important. This is where you get to put in all of the discrete costs of your activity, and you'll see in that screenshot that you have the ability to add a row in each of those sections on the left. So there'll be labor costs, capital costs, overheads, travel costs, and so on. And you can add as many rows as you need to. But this is where the finance and delivery schedule should correlate. So this is where all the money goes, if you like, the sums, but it needs to correlate with what you've described in your feasibility, sorry, your viability section, the third of those 3 sections. So just make sure that they tell a common story, if you like. Now, moving on to the second part of this section, finance to delivery, it's worth noting that as part of it, you will be expected to outline your delivery schedule with dates. And you'll see from the right hand there that you can select a deliverable type. So it might be a technical report, a trials plan, it might even be the demonstration. And there are certain conditions here you must be aware of. So for instance, the deliverables are normally associated with a stage payment, a milestone payment. We don't pay up front. So we only pay on deliverables, and your final deliverable must be at least 20% of the grand total. So please do be aware of that. And as I said, the delivery schedule needs to correlate with your overall project plan. So in your project plan, in that third of those 3 sections, you will describe what you're going to do, how and why, and what your plan is. And ideally, your deliverable schedule needs to correlate with that. Just a top tip, if you do get a stumbling block, when you've input the data on those previous boxes, so here, when you've input your finance, capital and overheads and so on, when you get to the final part of submitting this page, you just need to make sure that all the deliverable totals do correlate at the bottom of the page. And if there's a difference, as you can see here, it won't let you submit, so you need to go back in and fix some of the sums. Most people don't struggle with this, but it's just worth me mentioning at this point. Sorry, just one final thing. So before this, you know, this is, if you like, the penultimate stage. The final stage is for you to review and submit your proposal. Now, there are certain legal, ethical, and other requirements that are laid down in our terms and conditions. Again, I'm not dwelling on any of these in particular. This is a slide that we use for all of our customer briefings. You know, some people do research which involves human volunteers, so they have to factor in research ethics, for instance, in their proposal. There are other things to do with data protection and investigatory powers. Now, most of this may not apply to your proposal, but don't leave it to chance. Please do take a look at our website and acquaint yourself with our terms and conditions. And if you're having any questions, please do get in touch with the competition team. Now, once you've submitted your proposal, it will go into the hopper with all the people you're competing with for the funding on this competition or any competition. The first thing that will happen is we will do a pre-sift activity where we will assess your proposal for compliance against the competition requirements. And you may be pre-sifted if you don't meet those requirements. So please do take notice of both our normal T's and C's and also the competition document. Your proposal will be assessed by experts from a variety of disciplines, normally a minimum of 3, and as I said, they'll have about 90 minutes each. Assessment is followed by an activity that we call moderation, which is where one of the assessors is selected because of their skills and experience to, if you like, aggregate all of the assessor views from that particular proposal and provide a recommendation narrative and a fund or no fund recommendation. That recommendation is then subject to what we call a challenge process. whereby others involved in the wider stakeholder community have the opportunity to say, we disagree with that fund recommendation, or we disagree with that no fund recommendation. And that is then taken to a decision conference where any challenges are discussed, any recommendations are ratified and also prioritized, so that we can then select the ones that are best suited to defence funding. Now, what happens then is, if you're successful, you will be contacted by DASA and our commercial team. If you haven't worked with us before, there will be some paperwork to do. So the speed with which we will get you on contract is entirely dependent on your engagement with that process. And it's great, actually, once you're on contract, you will be assigned a project manager from our perspective, but also a DSTL technical partner who will support and advise you throughout the life cycle of your project. And I should point out, if you read our terms and conditions, that certain high-level information is retained by DASA for use on our website as part of the transparency data. Generally, if you're not successful, this does vary by competition, but you may get some limited feedback depending on why your proposal was not considered fundable on this occasion. That feedback is normally drafted by the moderator and goes through an internal process of quality assurance and control before it goes out to you. One thing I would say is that you're appealing to a theme competition. Sometimes an alternative option for you, if you're not successful on a theme competition, is to reapply, maybe with amendments and changes, into the open call, which I mentioned earlier. But I would say, be aware, in particular, if your first application was in the open call, resubmissions are normally only welcomed if that is explicitly stated in the feedback. So please, if you're not sure, have a chat with your local innovation partner, but don't invest time, money and effort in a proposal, a resubmission, if you're not sure that it would be welcome, because what we do, unfortunately for you, is we would pre-sift a resubmission that has not been welcomed by the team. So if in doubt, please do get in touch. So that concludes my presentation. I don't know whether any questions have come in on Slido, but I'll defer to the competition team if that is the case, and I'll stand by to answer any questions. But once again, if you like a final appeal from me, the innovation partners are out there to support you. Most of that support tends to be focused around open calls, but we are open to conversations about theme calls as well. But of course, you do also have the competition team itself, and I would urge you to get in touch if you have any questions that are not answered by either this presentation or by the one-to-one opportunities that are coming up very soon.